Okay, hi everyone. So I recently saw this idea by Kai Cenat where he reads for 15 minutes every day to improve his speaking. And I thought that was really important because that is something that I am actively working on as well. So from today onwards, I will be speaking and reading for 15 minutes so that I will be able to improve my speaking and to improve the way I articulate and enunciate words. So today is day one. Today is the 25th of May, and we're going to start real soon. Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, so today we'll be reading this substack article by Ayushi Taka, How to Find Meaning in Ordinary Days. There's a peculiar ache that follows us into adulthood, a subtle suspicion that we are meant for more than what our lives currently look like. Not in the grand, ambitious way of youth, but in a smaller, more private sense. The longing doesn't shout. It hums under the surface. A subtle discontent that blooms while doing the dishes or refreshing your email or noticing that your coffee tastes exactly the same as it did yesterday. We don't talk about it much, but we all feel it. The question of whether the days we are living, these slow, repetitive, practical days, are enough. Whether we are squandering our time by living so ordinary. For a long time, I mistook this feeling as a sign that something was missing, that I wasn't working hard enough, manifesting intentionally enough, changing dramatically enough. I used to believe a meaningful life had to feel like a constant becoming, that unless I was changing, upgrading, becoming someone newer or better, I was wasting time. That belief made my ordinary days feel like placeholders, dead air, the uneventful space between real life. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Maybe it was burnout, maybe it was therapy, maybe it was just growing up. But I stopped chasing transcendence and started paying attention, and when I did, I realized something quietly profound. The ordinary wasn't empty, it was full. It was the container that held everything real. The small gestures, the invisible choices, the days that looked like nothing from the outside, but were slowly building a life I could actually live. I just hadn't been present enough to notice it. Today, I want to talk about that noticing, about learning to stay, not just in our relationships or careers or commitments, but in the mundane texture of our actual lives. Because meaning, it turns out, doesn't arrive in grand epiphanies or dramatic turning points. It gathers slowly in the spaces we learn to inhabit fully. So here are some reflections, not rules, not prescriptions, on how I've started to find meaning in the parts of life that look the least important but end up mattering the most. First one, stay long enough for the ordinary to open up. Our instinct is to rush through anything that doesn't feel instantly meaningful. The second a moment feels slow, we distract ourselves. We pick up our phones, start planning the next thing, or tell ourselves the real day will begin once we are being productive again. But some of the most quietly meaningful moments don't announce themselves. They need your stillness. They require your attention. The way a room looks in the afternoon light, the feeling of your own body exhaling after a long stretch of tightness, the simple satisfaction of folding clothes or cutting fruits or walking the same way you always do, but slower this time. Meaning doesn't shout, it waits to be seen. Secondly, let your life be unremarkable and still deeply yours. We've been conditioned to believe that a meaningful life must be remarkable, that it should be big, visible, admired. But the truth is, most people's lives, even the happiest ones, are built on repetition. Your morning coffee will taste the same most days, your commute will blur, your to-do list will refill itself. There is nothing glamorous about maintenance, but maintenance is where real love lives. It's where devotion hides. In the cleaning, the tending, the returning. When you stop trying to make your life remarkable, you begin to see how deeply it already belongs to you. And that belonging, not performance, not productivity, is what makes it really matters. Thirdly, Redefine aliveness. We often equate aliveness with adrenaline, the thrill of travel, the dopamine of a new purchase, the rush of romantic tension. But there's always kind of aliveness, a subtler one that we overlook. It's the aliveness that comes from being in your life rather than outside of it. Not observing it for others, not documenting it to prove its worth, but inhabiting it fully. Breathing in sync with it. When you cook without multitasking, when you laugh mid-conversation and forget what you were so worried about, when you sit on the floor with a child and let their world become yours for a moment. These instances don't generate stories. They generate memory. Body memory. The kind that lingers. Fourthly, use rituals to shape your time with care. Not everything needs to be sacred, but something should be. Our days slip away quickly when they're undifferentiated, when there's no punctuation, no softness, no edges. Rituals give shape to time. They tell your body, this is when we return to ourselves. A cup of tea in silence before bed, washing your face slowly, playing the same song every Sunday while you clean. It's not about what the ritual is, it's about making the moment. When you treat your life as something worth marking, it starts to feel like something worth remembering. Fifthly, don't underestimate the power of being emotionally moved. I've learned to pause whenever I feel a lump in my throat. Not out of discomfort, but out of reverence. That lump, that sudden rise of emotion, is often the soul's way of saying, pay attention. It can be a sentence in a novel, a look exchanged across the room, a sudden memory that arrives without warning. These aren't coincidences. They are clues. I've built a more meaningful life by letting myself be changed by these tiny moments, by letting art, music, beauty, memory reach me instead of brushing them off in the name of efficiency. What moves you reveals you. 6. Write down things even when they seem too small to matter. We often wait for big insights to start writing, but some of my most precious entries are almost about nothing. The way the sky looked, a conversation that made me feel grounded, the exact words my son used when he said something funny. These are not lessons. These are records of aliveness. When you write things down, you are not just preserving memory, you are validating your life, you are telling yourself that it was worth noticing. And when you do this regularly, your days stop blurring. They become textured, storied, yours. 7. Allow for a kind of loneliness that is not a problem to be fixed. Not all loneliness needs to be cured. Some of it just needs to be sat with. Ordinary days often bring a quiet kind of loneliness. Not the painful, aching kind, but the subtle sense that no one else is quite in your moment with you. And instead of reaching for noise, calling someone or scrolling it away, I've learned to let it be. To sit with myself, not as someone to be escaped, but as someone to be companioned. That simple act, choosing your own presence, is one of the most meaningful things you can do. 8. Keep something alive, even if it is just a plant. Care is a gateway to meaning. Even when you tend to something outside yourself, a plant, a pet, a sourdough starter, a piece of writing, you participate in a kind of quiet devotion that deepens your relationship to time. You watch something grow, you adjust, respond, nurture. It makes your day less about consumption and more about continuity. There's a different texture to a life where you are responsible for something thriving, not just in a pressured way, but in a loving one. It makes the day feel like it's holding more than just you. Lastly, stop waiting for clarity to make your life feel worthwhile. We think meaning comes after we've figured it out, after the epiphany, the breakthrough, the rebrand. But most of life is lived in the middle, the unfigured out part. The part where you're not sure what you're doing, but you're doing it anyway. Showing up, cleaning your apartment, calling your friends back, learning to make soup. These things don't feel like a story, but they are. You are in it one day, and one day you'll look back and realize this was the part that made everything else possible. That's the real lesson. Meaning doesn't announce itself in grand gestures or dramatic moments. It settles in the steady rhythm of ordinary days, in the gentle insistence of showing up for yourself again and again, even when it feels small or invincible. It lives in the grace of patience, the courage to feel without rushing to fix, and the quiet celebration of just being flawed, unfinished, and entirely human. When we stop chasing something more, when we allow the ordinary to be enough, we discover that our lives have always held the meaning we were looking for. It just took slowing down enough to see it. I think this is a really good article, and I thought it was really, really sweet. I think that there's a couple of things that really resonated well. Firstly, I think that stay long enough for the ordinary to open up. I think that now, in a world where there's a lot of instant gratification, we often try to look for instant things, but actually most of the benefits of life really come from staying long and cultivating a good habit or cultivating a good experience, and that eventually will be something that opens up, and that will become the special thing. And obviously with Instagram and social media, we often see the highlight reels of people, so naturally it often comes across as, oh, instant gratification is the way and instant gratification is the future. But the truth is it's not, and often enough we do need to go back to days where we are waiting enough, staying long enough, cultivating good habits, and cultivating good thoughts and good people, such that eventually all these benefits will come back rolling to us. The other thing that I thought was really nice is write down things even when they seem too small to matter. I think I used to journal a lot, but now knowing that I don't really look back on my journal entries, I think that it does not become that significant, and I kind of chose to stop writing. But then again, it could be that simply because I think that these moments are not big enough. But sometimes, even though they are small, when I look back on them in the future, these could be really good memories that I look back upon because they were emotions and feelings that I was going through at a particular point in time. So obviously I'm trying to look back, and I really want to get back into journaling, but obviously I need to understand the why and why am I doing it, because understanding why helps to guide direction, and understanding this, that actually even writing down things that seem too small to matter does actually really make a difference, rather than thinking that moments do not matter and hence I stop writing. I like the idea of keeping something alive even if it's just a plant. I think the act of care really detaches you from the state of individuality. In a world today where we are all very focused on individual goals, individual purposes, there's the idea of community or just caring for something bigger than yourself. So why is it important? Because obviously life is about people, life is about caring for other people, and it's just not taking care of yourself. If you can be someone better and bigger than yourself, hey, obviously you should definitely go to it. And why would someone want to do that? Because no one is fallible. You need a community, and everyone has their darkest days. So if someone has the capacity to care for someone else, one day that person could potentially care back for you. And I would say it's about the energy, right? If you have the energy to love and care for someone, that person will get the energy from you and eventually have the energy to care again for you when you are in need of it one day. And why is that good? Because I think that really shows the concept that love makes the world go round. Because obviously everyone will have their up days and their down days, and so it's really important to just be there for people, to show care for people, and so that's why I think keeping something alive really matters, because the energy of loving someone, of loving something else, could get passed back to you in one way or another, which I think is a really nice thing. So basically, keep something alive, love that thing, and you will get love back in return. Oh, that's kind of nice, man. Stop waiting for clarity to make your life feel worthwhile. I feel like for myself, I always waited for clarity in my life before I decided. But there was a saying that said, the person that loves more receives the most love in return. And so maybe life is not always about getting the right answers, but just doing what feels right. And, going with the flow. Because those decisions that feel good and make sense in the moment will probably be the decisions that you remember for a long time to come. Okay, man, it's about 15 minutes soon. I have just finished talking through my own thoughts, and that makes the end of day 1 of reading. So thank you for listening in, and I'll see you for day 2 of reading tomorrow. Bye bye.